do it this way. This is a book that I want to just talk a little bit about, The Spirit of Shamanism by Roger Walsh, MD, PhD, psychiatrist, okay? It's a really good little book. And because we were talking earlier in class a bit about how do you determine if an experience is delusional, schizophrenic versus spiritual. Yeah, so on page, 225, he's got a great little chart here, okay, where he compares a comparison of the shamanic journey state with the acute schizophrenic episode. And so first of all, he addresses the issue of how much control does a person have over that experience. Now, hopefully you can see this okay. Okay, that dimension of control, the ability to enter and leave that state of consciousness at will, the ability to control the content of that experience. Now for the shaman, yes indeed, they have good control to enter in and leave that state. And then in terms of the content, they have partial control of the content of the experience. For someone who's schizophrenic, it's quite dramatic. Reduction of control, the inability to halt the process or control the experience. Okay. And then further down, he addresses awareness of the environment. Well, for the shaman, that awareness decreases. And this is what often happens in a spiritual experience. You tune out this world in order to tune into the other world. So your awareness of the outer environment shrinks because it's a distraction. You're tuning into that other dimension, right? For the schizophrenic, awareness often is also decreased of the environment, but it's also very distorted. That's a key thing. It's distorted perception. Whereas with a shaman, it isn't distorted. It's just decreased. The ability to communicate while in an altered state or a shamanic state, a spiritual state. Sometimes you can, okay, for the shaman, but for the schizophrenic is very much decreased and the communication is usually distorted. Chaotic, doesn't make sense, it's just all a mess. Concentration level, for the shaman, when they're having this experience, they are in a heightened, increased state of concentration and focus. Okay, it intensifies. And that's what happens when you meditate. It also increases the focus, right? And but for the schizophrenic, it's greatly reduced concentration. Mental energy, okay, in terms of just, mental energy, alertness, it's increased in the shaman, but also in the schizophrenic, it's increased, but more in the sense of being agitated, okay, and it can become quite extreme. State of calm, yes, I'm not too sure how this is to be interpreted. It's decreased state of calm, in terms of just, being sleepy maybe or whatever, it decreases. I'm not too sure what that means there. I'd have to maybe read more in the passage again. It's been a long time since I've read this book. The emotional state for the shaman, it's either positive or negative. It isn't really, necessarily one way or the other. But for the schizophrenic, it's usually very negative. Although rarely it can be positive, but it's often distorted and inappropriate. Okay, so that's just some comparisons. And let me just flip the page here for some more. It's kind of awkward doing this like this. I'm not good at, I don't know. I was trying to upload these pictures into a slide, then talk about it, but I couldn't get that to work. Anyway, to continue on in comparison. Now, in terms of your sense of identity or your sense of self, for the shaman, like in a spiritual experience, they have a separate sense of self, more like of a non-physical soul, okay? That sense of self as separate from the body is often common. For the schizophrenic, it's a very disintegrated sense of self, not just a separate sense of self like a soul, right, that leaves the body, but it's disintegrated. There's a loss of any kind of sense of boundaries between the self and the other, what's around them, the inability to distinguish the self from others, okay? Out-of-body experience. Well, yes, indeed, in shamanism, that's a lot of what they experience, and it's very much a controlled experience of ecstasy. And for the schizophrenic, it's rarely do they have that experience of being out of the body, like the soul leaving the body, going to another dimension. That's pretty rare, and it's largely uncontrolled. Okay, whereas the shaman is in control. It's a huge factor. Content of the experience. For the shaman, the content of the experience is organized and is coherent. There's a lot of imagery involved here, okay? And that imagery will reflect the context for the shaman in terms of, their particular culture, right? The purpose of the journey, but it will be meaningful. That's a key thing, is meaningful. It serves a purpose, the experience. It's something that contributes to life in some way. Whereas for the schizophrenic, it's disorganized and fragmented. Like it's just a chaotic mess of an experience that really has very little meaning, purpose, anything useful about it. Okay, so those are just some things here. Anyway, yeah, it's just a good book here. And then he also goes on to compare different experiences in different traditions. I know there's another chart here, just to show it to you, just so you have a bit of an idea of some of the content that you can find out there. Like there's a lot of great material around that most people have no idea exists. Here he has a chart, comparison of the shamanic journey state with advanced yogic and Buddhist meditative states. And again, he compares these, all right? Again, in terms of the control involved, right? Yes, whether it be through the practice of yoga or Buddhist meditation, there's control of the experience. It's directed, okay? Awareness of the environment in shamanism is decreased, but in Buddhist meditation, it's usually increased. Okay, again, there are different ways of meditating with different kind of purposes involved. That's a big difference between Buddhism and Hinduism. So that in yoga, for example, Patanjali's yoga in Hinduism is greatly reduced sensory and body awareness. You're really tuning out the world, right? In Buddhism, you want to be more present in the moment, fully here and now. But generally in Hindu types of meditation, it's like, no, you want to tune this world out altogether. Okay, yeah. Anyways, when I do Eastern religions, I talk about that. The ability to communicate, ability of concentration, mental energy, all that same stuff, and you can kind of see there. Again, some parallels and differences. Okay, again, I don't want to go through this too much, but just to give you a bit of an idea, because we're talking about that in class. Your identity of the sense of self, a separate self sense of the soul that leaves the body. Because again, there's different teachings in Buddhism and Hinduism, and also there's a variety of experiences to be had. To have the experience of almost like astral traveling, so to speak, the soul leaving and going into other dimensions. Okay, is one thing. Experiencing a sense of no self and just pure beingness is a whole nother type of experience. Okay, there's various experiences to be had in terms of religious experiences, okay? Yeah, so anyways, I think I'll just end it there. I just wanted to again, point out the differences between the schizophrenic and the shamanic in terms of, because we were talking about some of that stuff. Okay, so hopefully this made a little bit of sense. I just thought it could be useful. A great little book here. He goes a lot into shamanism. It's really a lot of good stuff, tons of good stuff. Okay. Ciao for now, and I'll just post this. All right. See you guys soon.